Have you ever felt your heart racing, your breath shortening, and a wave of fear washing over you seemingly out of nowhere? If you have, you're not alone. Panic attacks can be overwhelming, frightening, and unpredictable. The good news is there are ways to manage them effectively. Watch to the end of this video and I'll walk you through exactly what you need to do when a panic attack strikes, step by step, so you can regain control and feel calm again. But most importantly, at the end of this video, I'll help you stop them coming back for good. Well, first, if you're new to this channel, I'd love you to subscribe. Simply click on the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner to learn more tips about how to master your anxiety. For many of my clients, the trigger for them to reach out and seek help is an anxiety or a panic attack. And in this video, I'm not going to waste any time debating the difference between the two. Because to someone that's just had an anxiety attack or a panic attack, the reality is they just don't care. What they do care about is the fact that it scared them. And it's often scared them so much that they thought they were going to die. They just don't want to have another one. So what is a panic attack and why do they happen? Well, the first thing is a buildup of stresses over time. And this is how I describe it as the man in the tank. Imagine you're standing in a tank and it's filling with water from the bottom. We can cope with the water coming in up to our ankles, up to our shins and knees. We can cope with the water going up our legs, up our hips, to our stomach, and we can still keep going. We can cope with the water going all the way up to our chest and our shoulders, and we can still cope. But once the water gets to here, it only has to go here and here for us to become overwhelmed. Have you ever noticed that you've got by in a particularly stressful time, and yet one thing, just one simple thing, something someone said, something someone did, has triggered you and tipped you over the edge, and you snapped and you've lost your temper or you lost your cool? This is overwhelm, and it's caused by a buildup of stresses over a period of time. It's this sense of overwhelm that leads to the attack. You'll have heard me talk about this in previous videos about our threat response. When we have an attack, the threat response is in full swing. Your body and your mind perceive a threat and danger, and it's this mind and body's automatic response to the danger that causes us the problem. Here are some of the most common symptoms that people report during a panic attack. And they tend to be two types. They fall into two camps, physical and cognitive or mental. By physical, I mean feelings in the body. And by cognitive, I mean our thoughts. The first step to managing a panic attack is to recognize that it's a panic attack. When it happens, your body is in fight or flight mode, even though there's no real danger. Physically, this fight or flight response can generate the following feelings. Your breath probably becomes short, shallow, and sharp from the collarbone. As a result, your heart has to beat faster to pump oxygen around your body. You might feel dizzy, you might feel a tightening in the throat or the chest. You might even think you're having a heart attack. You may feel nauseous or sick and that you need to go to the bathroom. Your extremities, like your hands and your feet, may feel tingly, and so on. There are many possible physical responses, and these are some of the common ones. What is happening in your body is it's preparing to fight or run away from a perceived danger or threat. Now, cognitively, you may notice the way of thinking has changed. It becomes narrowed and negative. Narrowed, you can only think of the immediate danger or problem. There's only now. Negative, you start to think in black and white terms. This is usually called catastrophic thinking. I'm going to die. There's something seriously wrong with me. I'm having a heart attack. Now, none of what I've said is particularly nice to go through. In fact, it's deeply unpleasant. But what you need to do here is to calm and soothe yourself. Let the emotional part of the brain know that everything is fine. So start to remind yourself, this is my body's normal way to react to danger. Panic attacks feel terrifying, but they are not harmful and they always pass. Just acknowledging this can start to take away some of the fear and the power of the panic attack. The most powerful way to stop a panic attack is to regain control of your mind and body. You will see and hear in many places the importance of breathing or grounding. In a moment, I will explain how to use grounding and breathing techniques to regain that control. Before I do, not many people take the time to explain why this regaining control of your breathing is so important. I'm definitely of the belief that the first step to mastering our minds and our anxiety is to understand what's going on in our minds and our bodies. So here goes. So let's take a closer look at the limbic system, specifically the amygdala and the vagus nerve. As we've learned in previous videos, the amygdala and the vagus nerve, they play a central role in our emotional regulation. And I'll also have explained some simple techniques like controlled breathing and grounding, which can help us manage our emotional responses. The amygdala stands out as a central player, acting as our internal threat detector. Imagine your amygdala as a vigilant bouncer at a nightclub or a bar, always looking out for potential danger. He's adept at recognizing threats, but he doesn't deal in subtlety and nuance. When he perceives a danger of whether it's real or imaginary, it triggers a cascade of physical and psychological responses. This response is facilitated by the vagus nerve. This is the conduit that transmits signals between our mind and our bodies. And there are two pathways, the sympathetic pathway and the parasympathetic pathway. The sympathetic pathway is commonly known as the fight or flight mode. It's gearing our body up to deal with confrontation and escape threats. On the other hand, the parasympathetic system promotes rest and digest. It helps us relax and recover. The trigger for activating the sympathetic pathway often lies in an imbalance between oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in our bodies caused by our breathing. When we're stressed, our breathing pattern changes. We start these short, shallow, sharp breaths, often from our collarbones. This is a preparatory mechanism for our bodies to ensure we've got enough oxygen to fuel a quick getaway. However, this type of breathing can exacerbate feelings of stress and anxiety, moving us further and further away from the body's natural state of balance, known as homeostasis. To counteract this, we need to employ techniques that encourage the activation of the parasympathetic system, thus restoring us to balance. Two of the most effective ways to do this is through grounding ourselves or through controlling our breathing. By doing this, we signal to our bodies that everything's okay, it's safe to relax, and it helps mitigate the fight or flight response. So here are the two techniques that I'd like to share with you that I think will help. The first technique is called grounding. To ground yourself is a really good technique to learn to relax. You may have heard of grounding, but actually, what is it? Well, to come out of an anxiety attack, we need to tell our threat detector on our brains, the amygdala, that everything's okay. We need to calm down our bouncer friend. We need to soothe our amygdala. Grounding yourself is getting back in touch with your senses. And by doing this, through all your five senses, you send a message to the brain that everything's okay. There's actually no danger around. Simple grounding technique, which can pull you back into reality, is called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. So let me talk you through this now. Look around and name five things you can see. Five things. Name them, notice them, maybe Spot something that you didn't realize about them, the color, the light, how it shines on them, the texture. Next, find 4 things you can touch. It could be your clothes, your hair, the chair, the floor. Notice how they feel. Are they hard? Are they soft? Are they warm? Are they cold? Are they rough? Are they smooth? Now listen for 3 sounds. Could be the noise of distant traffic, the ticking of a clock, or it might be your own breathing. Pay attention to the sound. Are they loud? Are they quiet? Are they made up of one sound or many sounds? Now identify 2 things that you can smell. Imagine maybe a calming scent or the smell, just the general smell in the room. What do you notice about these scents? And lastly, identify 1 thing that you can taste. It might be the taste of coffee from a cup of coffee that you had earlier, or imagine the flavor of an orange or a lime or your favorite ice cream. By focusing on your senses, you're sending a message to your brain that it's safe. You can't do that when you're in danger. And the thing is, you're not really in danger, and that's what you need to send. That message to your brain and your amygdala that everything is okay. The second technique I'd like to tell you about is how to control your breathing. As mentioned before, it's the breathing that starts the cascade of events in our minds and our bodies. This short, shallow, sharp breath. We're trying to get this oxygen into our body to prepare to run away. This can lead to an increase in heart rate and so on, as mentioned before. The key to switching off this cascade is to reverse the breathing. So instead of it getting quicker, you want to slow your breathing down. But you want to do that in a particular way. But before I show you this technique, I just want you to notice something about the way you breathe. Have you noticed when you breathe in, everything tightens up? The Latin word ango is the origin of the word anxiety, and ango means to constrict. When you breathe in, you constrict. Now I want you to do the opposite, which is to breathe out, and tell me what you notice. When you breathe out, you relax. And if we can get the out breath longer than the in breath, it's inherently relaxing. And that's the basis of this breathing technique. Now, this breathing technique is way, way more powerful than simply telling yourself that everything's okay. This is the evidence that your brain needs that everything's okay. And you need to send messages to the brain that there's no danger. One of the best techniques for regaining control of your breathing is what's called 7-11 breathing. You breathe in for 7 seconds and then out for 11. The numbers are not that important. It's the ratio that's the crucial bit. But 7-11 breathing is very easy to remember. Okay, now practicing 7-11 breathing is really actually quite straightforward. It can be done anywhere, when you're at home, at work, or even in the midst of a stressful situation. And here's a simple guide to getting started. So first, sit comfortably, or maybe lie down in a comfortable position. Close your eyes if that helps you to focus. The second part is to inhale gently through your nose for the count of 7. Fill the air into your lungs and expand your chest and your abdomen. Now exhale out through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw and count to 11 as you do so. Focus on emptying your lungs completely and allowing your body to relax with each exhalation. Now you need to repeat this repeatedly for about a cycle of about 5 to 10 minutes. If you do this, I guarantee you will zone yourself through the floor and feel completely relaxed. Now, practicing 7-11 breathing consistently can help your body learn to return home to homeostasis more easily, even in stressful situations. This practice helps you regulate your emotions, particularly anxiety, by ensuring the body's physiological responses don't spiral out of control. It's tremendously empowering, and it's the equivalent of putting a release valve in the water tank that I mentioned before. It stops that buildup of stress over time. Moreover, 7-Eleven breathing can serve as a valuable tool in your overall mental health toolkit. It's a simple but accessible technique that requires no equipment, no training. It's a brilliant way to improve your emotional regulation. Now, when a panic attack has finished and passed on, go and have a drink of water, find a comfortable spot, and do something that soothes you. Maybe listen to music, stretch, journal about what's happened. And most importantly, just don't beat yourself up about having a panic attack. It's not a sign of weakness, it's actually your body's way of handling stress. But now you know how to handle it better, what can we do to avoid them coming back again in the future? I'm going to give you two tips. Number one, remember my earlier point about avoiding overwhelm. When our mind and our body become overwhelmed, the chance of having another panic attack will go up significantly. So always remember to have a release valve to let that water out of the tank. Do whatever is right to you to stop that buildup of stress. It could be reading a book, it could be meditation, spending time with friends, or my personal favorite, going for a walk in nature. Soothing the amygdala is super important. Secondly, avoid avoiding. If you've had a panic attack in a certain place, do not avoid that place and going back to it. I had a client called Bill who was going to a very stressful meeting at work, and as he was driving there on the motorway, he had a panic attack. He pulled over and he thought he was going to die. Now, Bill stopped using motorways because his brain formed a pattern match between driving on motorways and the panic attack. And he stopped driving on motorways. And this was causing him great distress because he was taking 4 hours to go somewhere that should have taken two. What Bill needed to do is go back and form a new pattern of behavior. Yeah. He needs to go back and drive in a super calm, super relaxed state. And that tells the brain that actually motorways are fine. Okay. So avoid avoiding. Do not stop going to the place where you had the panic attack. Okay, so let me share some final thoughts of encouragement with you, right? So I know panic attacks can feel like they're taking over your life. I've had them. They're not nice, but they don't have to take over your life. With practice, you can take back control. And if panic attacks are happening often, know that help is available. There's always therapy, coaching, or support from loved ones. You're not alone in this. And if this video helped you, let me know. Leave some comments, share it with someone that might need it. But remember, you're stronger than your panic. You've got this.